Welcome to the Driven to Succeed Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Olson, and today I have a returning guest, Mallory Johnson from B Realty. You got to
Yeah.
change your name,
Yes, we did.
but did your whole. That's a nice process, right?
Yeah, it is a process. That's a good word for it.
It's a
Like
process.
changing brokerages, starting our own brokerage is what we did. So yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yes, but awesome, good for you. I mean, we were just talking and we're talking about how many buyers and active buyers you have right now. That's
Hmm.
amazing. You're 15, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yes.
that's fantastic. I
Thank
mean,
you.
I talk to so many agents and it's night or day difference, right?
Hmm.
Of who's really killing it and who's not. And the people that are not, their attitude just and that's why they're not, in my
Right.
opinion.
Yeah.
And you know, it's this market has not been easy for real estate, for the mortgage people, but it
Hmm.
really hasn't been easy for the buyers, right?
Right.
Specifically first time home buyers, which
Hmm.
both you and I have, that's kind of where we play in that space,
Bread and
right?
butter. Yep.
Yep, it is what it is, right?
Hmm.
And that's where, people that are newer to the industry, and granted, I'm not exactly new to the industry, but that's where you really get in that space. And it takes, you know, it- 8, 9 years before now you have those returning people,
Right.
right? I mean, for a consistency, right?
Hmm.
You might be getting them here already from
Yes, I
people,
am.
yep,
Yep.
yep, looking for their next home or whatever else. But for the most part, we really, really struggle, or we really work with first time home buyers that are struggling right now,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
They might have
Not easy.
no, and what's the number one objection you get?
The interest rates.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing that kind of keeps buyers from, dipping their toes in the water. And it's scary. Those numbers are big and prices are rising, and it's scary.
Yeah. And, another gentleman and I were talking about it, and he had a really good take on it. And he's like, look at this generation. Look at what if they were young and they remember like the '08 crash, or if their parents went
Right.
through it and they lost their house or something, right? And the values of homes declined. And then all of a sudden we had COVID where rates went to the floor,
Hmm.
right? So they are conditioned a little bit like, oh, the rate is 7%,
Yes.
and and I had pulled out some statistics the other day of just, really, more of informing people,
Mhm.
right? And I'm not saying 7% is great by any means, but 7%, we played in that the majority of 50 years outside of the last 20.
Oh yeah, historically, it's not bad. It's like average.
Right, right. Granted, homes were lower, but so was incomes,
Hmm.
right? I mean, people's incomes of $18,000 is buying an $80,000 home at,
Right.
7% interest rate, right?
Yes.
So you start looking at those numbers and you realize that's where it's, going to be. And, so the informing part is we don't think we're going to stay at 7%. I mean,
Hmm.
the models all predict lower rates.
Hmm.
But what happens when low rates go lower?
Right. What happened during COVID when they dropped, all of a sudden prices skyrocketed.
Right.
And that's going to happen again.
Exactly. Where I pulled out also more statistics. I like pulling out some statistics. You know, the looking what the homes on like new listings in 2020 March of 2024 was 5,000 listings,
Hmm.
right? 5,200. Just up a little bit from 5,000 in 2023. And I know I talk about this, and if people are returning and listening to me more than anything, not the guests, but they've heard me talk about this. In the crash,
Hmm.
there was 23,000 homes on the market when the housing market crashed in 20 two
Yep.
thousand eight. Added 10,000 more homes. So we had 33,000 homes. So think of that number, 33,000 versus 6,000 homes on the market right now. I think March of 2024, the inventory was 6,800 homes.
It's completely opposite of what's happening now versus what happened before.
Correct.
Yeah. We have
Right.
lack of inventory.
Right. The lack of inventory, the people that have the 2% rates, the 3% rates, they're like, I'm not moving.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not moving this. I'm not trading this in.
Hmm.
And they will eventually.
Oh yeah, when you
They're
have to move, you have to move.
right.
Hmm.
So I get many people like, it is what it is. We've had another baby, like our oldest is, they can't have the same room anymore.
Right.
It's time to do it.
Hmm.
Right. And, so you have those people,
Hmm.
right? It's just many people are really stuck because it's the interest rate, the
Right.
price of the homes, or I'm waiting for both of them to come down. And that's where we really got to get
Mhm.
into. It's very unlikely the values of homes come down without something major catastrophe, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And I pray to, you know, that doesn't happen,
Yeah.
right? It
Right. Exactly.
We don't want to see a catastrophe, so prices can come down because that's the only reason why they're going to come down is people are losing
Right.
jobs or something, really is
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah. We just got through one catastrophe. Like, I'm not
Right,
ready for
right.
another one.
No, no. So I mean, the fact of the matter is like, if you just looked at 16 years ago when the crash had happened, values tanked and rates came down even further, and the build up, 12, 14 years later to
Mhm.
16 years now, if you look at the home values then to now, I mean, look at what you're missing out on, right?
Exactly. So waiting for a catastrophe, I think, is a catastrophe.
Right, exactly.
How
Um,
much money are you throwing away on rent, if
it's
you're
a
waiting
hundred
around?
a hundred percent
Right.
interest at that point, right?
Exactly.
You're not making anything, and being able to um look at what that rate is, look at what those payments are, and coming down to just like what's your budget?
Hmm.
Like what can you afford? And throw everything out. What can you afford?
Exactly.
If we can afford a house,
Hmm.
then you can afford to build wealth.
Yes.
That's literally what it comes down to. If you can afford that payment, you
Hmm.
can build wealth, right?
Absolutely.
Um, it was funny for the longest time. It was marry the house and date the rate, right?
Yeah.
And because it's literally what you can do.
That's truth to that.
Yes, absolutely. And with rates likely to come down over the next 2 to 3 years, but it's not guaranteed. I
Mhm.
mean, if we look at the chart, when it hit 10%, what did it do from there? It went to 18%.
Mhm.
And this is in 1980, like four, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But then it came down, but that 10-year period, it went way up.
Yeah.
So if you were to buy, let's just say worst case,
Mhm.
right? If you were to buy a house today at 7% interest rate,
Mhm.
and tomorrow rates went to 8, and 2 years from now they're at 10,
Yep.
right? The market's not going to magically change in the values of your homes and everything else. You're going to be in that 7% rate,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Because the other economic thing you got to look at is the population growth.
Mhm.
It's real. I mean,
Mhm.
in 2008, we had a far less population in the Twin Cities than we do now,
Yep.
right? And that's not going to change.
No.
And the people aren't magically going to just move away, right?
Exactly.
So, the consensus is that even if rates do go up and you're at 7% now, you protected yourself
Mhm.
from like, oh, 2 years from now, like now it's 9%, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's going to happen.
Going up that much? No. I mean, you would know better on that end than me, but from the research I do, I don't think so in the near future anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all the models are predicting. I mean, I've seen models showing like 3%. Now, I don't think 3% are likely. If it does, the
Yeah.
value of that $400,000 house is going to be five.
Yeah, that is going to
Eh,
skyrocket again,
Right.
right? It's
So, every point that we drop,
Mhm.
5 million more people are eligible to buy.
Yes.
So that just puts that pressure back on that pricing.
Exactly. The buyer pool gets bigger and inventory is the same.
Right. It's the same.
Just it's not
Exactly.
the builders can't build fast enough.
Yeah. They put the statistics out there. I think Keller Williams had put this out there like 2 years ago. When 2020 they were building as much as they were. That was like the peak of the building, how much they were building,
Mhm.
right? COVID happened, so it dropped off.
Yes.
And then a lot of different things and economic pushes and rates, so they've dropped off, like building more homes. The housing starts just last month was down like I just looked at the numbers yesterday on the business channel, but I think it was expected to be 3.8 and it was 3.4,
Mhm.
4.3 and 4.8, something like that. But it was off by a half a point,
Dang.
right? So that's a big number.
Yeah.
In this time of year, this is where the building season really starts
Right.
picks up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it just keeps putting a bigger pressure on the housing supply.
Sure does. Yes.
And that's what you can't fix is that purchasing price.
Right.
You can fix the rate,
Yeah.
or you can even buy the rate down to get it to where you're at,
Right. That's true. Yep.
right?
That's an option.
Um, because I've seen, I wouldn't go overboard because I think rates are going to come down
Hmm.
because then you're going to refinance, but you don't want to pay, $15,000 to get a 5.99 rate.
Exactly. Yeah,
And then also next year have 5.99 where you could refinance for a lot less than 15 grand.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so there's different things, and that's where it comes down to, we work together as a team.
Hmm.
We educate our buyers, and just really looking at my focus is really still, can you afford this payment,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
With your
Spot on.
family or by yourself, can you afford this payment?
Hmm.
Because throw everything else out. If you can afford this payment, and you look at the history going back to the early 1900s
Hmm.
of the values of homes
Hmm.
and the wealth it builds and creates.
Yes.
And the sooner you do that in life, it's just like the sooner you start investing to retirement plan,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
The better you're going to be
I know.
at retirement age.
Well, rent is going up too. So, like, you compare it to what you're paying in rent right now and like run those numbers over 5 years and compare like how much equity you could build in those 5 years. Like, it's worth it to make that jump again as long as you can afford to do so.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where
Yeah.
you just got to throw all the other noise out and really look
Yeah.
at, okay, can I buy the house in the area I want, right?
Hmm.
And I've even seen where, okay, it's not exactly the area, but is I can afford it.
Right.
Because 2 years from now, maybe you got this going on, or 2 years, 3 years, a lot changes in those years.
Yes.
And in those 3 years, if you gain, say, 5%, and let's say rates do drop a half a point
Mhm.
or a point, and now your house is gaining at like 10%,
Yeah.
right? You bought that $350,000 house, and now you have 35 grand of equity or 40.
Right. Put that towards your next house. It's a
Correct.
stepping stone.
And
Exactly.
exactly. So, and then on top of it, you put down maybe 5%.
Hmm.
You literally have all that there, and now you're trading one payment for a similar payment,
Right.
but now you have the
Exactly.
house that you want.
Yes, yes, I don't have the statistics, but many home buyers like these days live in their first homes 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Like that's kind of what it is because they kind of see it that way too, where it is like a stepping stone. It's a savings account for what they really want. They're realizing that they can't afford their dream home right now, but they can in maybe 5 years. And
And let's just say, okay, when you say that savings account, like,
hmm.
let's say you can do 3% down
Hmm.
on $350,000, right? That's like 17,500 bucks, right?
Right,
Now you have closing costs, so figure you're at 25 to 28,000 if you're paying those closing
right.
costs, right? Um, there's down payment assistance programs that you can get that money, but let's just talk about the original 17,000. In 3 years to 5 years, that 17,000 that could turn into 50, 60, 70,000. You think you can do that most other places?
No, no,
Vehicles
like
of money.
absolutely not. No, the rate that it's growing right now because of the lack of inventory and like supply and demand, right? Like it's growing so quickly right now.
Right. So that's the biggest thing that, conveying to people that are on the fence.
Hmm.
Like, hey, I'd like to get a house. And they go on Zillow and they check things out on
Hmm.
Zillow. And like, I always recommend, there's a couple different things right now. I'm always like, if you're literally thinking about it, whether you have a house or you're a first time home buyer, you're just thinking about it, you have to have a conversation with you and me,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly.
Because you need to know, talk to an expert um, that can help you in this process, right? A lot of people, say, okay, well, we can do this on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then they overestimate numbers. They kind of they scare themselves out of it when
right,
they do it on their own. You
right.
got to have people in the industry who know what they're talking about, who can give actual numbers and examples, and it it's a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, you know, not to go too far off the subject, but I'm not, I can't do, I'm in finance, but I can't do an accountant's job,
Hmm.
right? Or
Right.
I have a tech company, but I can't do my developer's job,
Yeah,
right? I could
exactly.
go watch some YouTube videos and figure some things out, but I can't literally do those jobs.
Yeah.
so having the experts and I'm leading into something here, and I want to get into because this has been a big discussion and things have changed industry, and a lot of people have very big opinions of this, but you know, yeah, moving into the NAR
Mm-hmm.
settlement, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole buyer's agent, why is the seller paying for a buyer's agent compensation and so forth when the buyer should be paying for that? Well, as first time home buyers, I hope this is not going to scare people off because it all we're going to end up doing, and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA has already done it, VA is soon to follow suit, is they literally announced like on Monday, um, and FHA already had, but the sellers are just going to be able to pay it for it in a different seller paid closing cost item,
Right.
line a line item. It's
Yep.
literally that's what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And as a buyer, you and your agent, you're going to work out on theirs, just like the seller is going to say, what's going to come down to in a nutshell. This is how I literally see how it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to list a house. You're going to tell them, okay, here's what the commission is for me to list your house, market and do everything for it. Make sure I negotiate everything properly on your behalf, blah, 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 blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, conversely, a buyer's agent is going to come in and it's very likely in this market environment that you're still going to be supplying some of that money to them because if you don't, you're just going to be getting a buyers in. You're limiting yourself,
Mm-hmm.
limiting how much you can even sell. That you're taking all this pool of people off the market that should be
Absolutely.
looking at your
Yep.
house, and then you're going to lose that in multiple offers or whatever it could be, right?
Right. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And buyers, need buyer's agents. And if the agent isn't getting compensated, then that makes it, like, okay, I don't want to work for free. Do you want to work for free?
No. Well, and really, what I hate about it, and again, I'm a W-2 as a loan officer. We're W-2, right?
Mhm.
So we have taxes taken out of our paycheck. With you, you're self-employed,
Right.
right? You have to do all of that stuff. Health insurance, right?
Right.
You got to pay for your health insurance.
Hmm.
You don't have a company supplying you any money. So you have to do all of this stuff on your own. And what people, oh, they make too much money. They do this and like, well, I would beg to differ. The vast majority of real estate agents, even the big ones, by the time you build these teams out, like the real money isn't like you're paying everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not what, if you're just a standalone and you've been doing this for 30 years and you just have this giant client base, yeah, you're probably just killing it because you
Hmm.
don't have to do much. I don't
Right.
really market a lot, blah blah blah. Anyway, I'm getting off subject, getting off topic. The main thing is that, educating everybody around this, that, having a buyer's agent, like, you do listing and buyers, but we do a lot of buyers, right?
Right. Right.
And having a buyer, as a buyer's agent, how much do you go through with a buyer, right?
Oh, so much. I mean, I was just thinking about this on the way here. Kind of reading through social media, there's a lot of talk, oh, buyer's agents open doors. Like, what do they do? They don't deserve that commission. Well, then in the past, if you've worked with an agent and you think that, then they did a really good job at hiding what they do from you. I've put out so many fires behind the scenes. I'm up until midnight sometimes working on paperwork, and I don't tell my clients that I'm doing all this. I don't tell my clients, oh, we were this close to losing the deal, but I worked tirelessly behind the scenes so that you didn't feel that.
Right.
And I didn't,
The good buying experience.
yes, exactly.
And here's a time card. Here's my hours that I put in
Right,
and that's what people don't see. They don't see it like on the lending side either, and
right.
how many people touch the transaction. Like,
Uh,
why does it cost so much? Well, there's, between title and us, there's 10 to 12 people that literally touch your file going from start to finish, right?
right.
And that's where, people that when they start to understand that and grasp that, it's like, well, now I get it, right?
Yes.
Is it's just like, well, it's an arbitration, that's just a fee that you're putting on there, right?
I
A
agree.
percentage.
I
And
know.
but yeah, you're right. The deals that are good late at night, and then on top of it, oh, we got an inspection report, and here's on the inspection report. Here's what you should be concerned about. Here's what you shouldn't. Here's what we can go ask for. Here's what we can't.
Absolutely.
Now think of it this way: you're for sale by owner, or you're a buyer just going in, just going directly to the seller, you don't get any of that.
Right.
And then after the fact, what do you have? Like
Exactly.
specifically being a first time home buyer too.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep, exactly. So I think the biggest thing that's going to change, at least for me and my team, is going to be just communicating. Kind of, we have to kind of sell our value a little more than, probably what was done before. And, just making sure that these first time home buyers, especially, do know what we offer. So, because now we have to have buyer rep agreements signed before we can even show houses. Um, and we just have to let them know that we bring a lot of value to them. Like
Right.
they can do it without us, but it's not going to be very easy.
Yeah. I just yesterday had a broker ask me, about their team and like how, helping educate like some of the newer real estate agents and on like just the financing process,
Hmm.
right? And like how what their value is to their customers.
Right.
Like, and because we have to work together in order to get a house closed,
Hmm.
right? And if a buyer doesn't have representation guiding them to do anything and telling them to do anything besides a lender, which
Yes.
I absolutely hate when I have somebody say, I'm going to represent myself.
Hmm.
Okay, are you an attorney?
Yeah.
Have you done this before?
Yeah.
And
It's a
like
big purchase.
you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and there's enough issues already with people having to go no inspection or something, right?
Oh, I know.
Um, but the the worth that a real estate agent, even a buyer,
Hmm.
you're not just a door opener. Like
Exactly.
maybe in some cases you opened a brand new door to a new construction home, and then there ain't much to do after that on because they're doing a lot of it. But even then, you're still involved because you still have to do a lot of the back work, making sure we're getting all the proper stuff from the builder,
Yeah.
everything signatures, all this stuff that's done. And um
But even so, those builder reps are representing the builder. They're
correct.
doing what's best for the builder. You don't have anybody.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where I always had that, it's great as a real estate agent when you get a listing and somebody comes right to you and you get both sides of the transaction, right?
Sure.
Um, but I've always said, at the same time, when you do that, you basically have to be like, I can't represent both. I have to
Fully.
represent you equally, so I can't tell you my client
Yes.
one way or another what to do, and this person anyway what to do, right?
Right.
You have to have that separation. So at
Exactly.
that point, like
Yeah, it
what's going on,
can be a
right?
conflict of interest. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I always and I'm not trying to put you on this, but I've always had the belief that the listing agent had that buyer for a lot longer than they'd known you, so they've got a little bit of a bias to them. That's what I would be
That's true.
worried about.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
That and granted, you want to treat both equally because
Mhm.
you want to be able to sell that house again with that have this new,
Yeah.
so you got to walk that road, but at the same time, you're still as a buyer this is why you don't necessarily do that.
Hmm.
Not trying to take anything away from, getting that as a listing agent,
Right.
but anyway, going down that road is the value that real estate agents have on both sides, whether a listing agent or a buyer's agent, is great. I mean, you have the knowledge,
Hmm.
you know the pitfalls, you've done it enough,
Right.
and you get into something, and then you don't have to worry about arbitration or anything like that down the
Exactly.
road.
So, yes, at the end of the day, if the buyer does have to pay the commission of the buyer's agent, that agent needs to be able to express what their value is,
Right.
so.
Yeah. At the end of the day, everybody has, that's if you do a good job and people can see that,
Mhm.
I think by throwing this out there, it's really not changing, but it is going to just give more transparency to the industry.
That's
And I think
exactly
that's
what
a
it
good
is.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And that's where the perceptions
Mhm.
are now going to change going forward, right?
I know.
That you're not just a door opener
Right.
anymore, right?
Exactly. Yes, and I think that kind of with most things, I think the media has kind of blown it up out of proportion and kind of, put a bad spin on it, and they And I think like they have the scare tactics, right?
Right.
You watch the news and it's all negative, it's all blowing things out of proportion. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's that,
No,
that much. It's a positive thing.
and it's kind of funny because this made brought a spotlight to it, but there was, I think it was Washington and Maine or something, that like one of those two states already literally went through this years ago,
Yeah,
and they literally have a separate amendment stating the different commission structures
sure.
on that one. And that's all it was.
Yeah,
It was just like
that's
we added
right.
another amendment.
Hmm.
And when this all came to light last year, I mean, it was what they fought it for like 2 years.
Yeah,
It was like
something like that.
and then it's on appeal right now, and it's supposed to. I think it's finally the settlement actually happens in mid-July.
July. Yep.
But but prior to that, I mean, it was just simple as that, right? It's just going to
Have
be
to
this is
work
how
on it.
you're going to
Yeah,
market it, right?
exactly.
Anyway, on to new subjects. To finish up, to finish up, as a first-time home buyer, right? What is literally the first steps that you advise? Like, they come to you, say, "Hey, I saw your listing, or I saw your information,"
Mhm.
because you guys do a good job marketing, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. My team puts a lot of work in. Thank you
A lot
for
of money
saying
and work into it.
that. Yeah.
I get the mailers
Yes.
at my house.
Yeah. Oh, yes, you do actually. The first thing I say, call my guy Brandon. You
Nice.
need to figure out how much you can afford, right? Like
Yeah.
that's bottom line. That's where you should start is numbers. And then we kind of work from there, get set up on a search. We kind of talk about through wants and needs and where do you want to be, and then we get set up on a search and just kind of start dipping our toes a little bit. Try not to be too overwhelming at first with, a million showings in one day, and then that's kind of first steps.
I like how you said that, because you don't want to take somebody out to go show 15 homes first day, right?
So overwhelming.
Because you don't even remember what the first home was like,
Right.
right?
Yes. Yeah. No, it's too much. I try to keep it to like a max of 6 in one day.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's overwhelming to me. I can do it all day, but it's like for especially first time home buyers when they're kind of not really sure what they can afford, what they want, what they need. Gotta limit that.
Well, fortunately, it's not like there's always 15 homes on the market for them to go look
So
at.
true.
So, but unfortunately, that's why the prices are higher
Hmm.
than we want, right? But you know, the other thing, and I wanted to highlight as well, is that you also have an interior design background,
Yes.
right? That's
Yes, I
kind of how
do.
you got into the industry a little
Hmm.
bit, right? That's how you got,
Exactly. Yep.
yes.
Yeah, that's what I went to college for and started in commercial interior design and then kind of decided to start my own staging business. Reached out to an old friend from high school, Brittany Shaw, and who's a realtor, and started staging for her. And I'm like, I kind of like this real estate thing, and so now I've completely converted. No, I still do design and staging. I still love it. That has my heart, but
Awesome.
I do love real estate.
Well, what I can tell is, though, that, I mean, from when I first met you, because I had you actually come look at my house and tell
Yeah.
me what I had to do with my green carpet,
Yeah.
in my kitchen,
Yeah.
specifically. But what I've seen over the last 4 years since then,
Hmm.
and like watching your growth and hearing you have 15 buyers today. I mean, I know many agents don't have 15. They wish they had 5 buyers, right? Or even 2 buyers right now. So fantastic job.
Thank you.
Major props on that. You guys have a really good team. You really know how to express yourselves, get out there, and really work well with your clients.
Thank
So,
you. Brittany is very good at what she does.
but I want to thank you for coming on the show again.
Thank you for
And
having me.
yeah, we've had a number of events that we've done recently. First time home buyer event, the
Yes,
pumpkin giveaway. We got to figure out something for the summer yet, but
absolutely. Yes.
looking for more continued success for you.
Thank
And
you.
uh, yeah, thank you again for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you very much.